Today my guest is Stephen List, better known as Doc. Doc, how are you?
Pleasure.
Thanks for being on my show. We were talking for about 5 minutes before the camera turned on. Let's just continue that.
Okay.
But actually, let's not continue. Let's first just tell people who you are.
Okay. Who I am, boy. So I'm one of those non-techie guys that got into technology purely by accident. Degrees in psychology.
Biochemistry?
Yeah. And literally fell into a job in technology by accident. I was in the middle of my master's work and quit school. And because it was like, whoa, I'm learning this stuff. And I took manuals, this is 30 years ago, manuals, right? Took them home and read them cover to cover, which is insane, but it was that exciting.
And I'm looking in the mirror now. Maybe I'm overflating myself, but go on.
So started in mainframes, went to early days of commercial Unix in the early 80s. Super microcomputers, then moved on to PCs and Windows and Macs. And I've worked on pretty much every kind of platform. Variety of languages, although I haven't been coding in the last 8 or 10 years, more management leadership kinds of things. A lot of people stuff. So for between 15 and 20 years, management leadership focusing on people and how people work well together.
Technical people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're doing technical people and you've got that technical background.
Oh, yeah.
And that's got to help, right?
Yeah.
All right. And what are you doing here in Code Masters, MSE?
They invited me to come up and facilitate and work with the open space.
Cool, that's what I really want to talk about, open spaces. What is open spaces?
Well, so I differentiate between what I'll call uppercase and lowercase. Okay?
Uppercase O?
Uppercase open space, so uppercase O, uppercase S. So there's an approach called open space technology that was defined by a guy named Harrison Owen, who started it in about 1985 and then wrote the book. Open Space Technology, a User's Guide, in '89. And it's an approach to holding events. What he said is he worked in the Peace Corps and he'd gone to Africa and he worked with Native Americans, and they have this thing about sitting in circles and respect and talking sticks and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then he went to a lot of conferences and he said the best parts of all the conferences were the coffee breaks when you could just talk to people. And so I say he formalized coffee breaks into an event. And the idea is...
this guy justified my coffee breaks.
That's right.
I like this guy.
All of ours. He's our patron saint, although he's still alive. So the idea is there's no agenda. Instead of somebody else deciding on what everybody's interested in, when the participants come together, they decide. They create the agenda based on what's interesting to them.
Right.
There is usually a theme or a purpose or a topic. So it could be in a city, we're talking about should we raise property taxes or are we supporting our schools enough? Mm-hmm. And you might use an open space to talk about that.
Right.
In an organization, you might say, where is this company going? Right? Or we have to make some decisions and we want to engage the employees.
So all those questions are kind of open-ended questions.
Right.
Most of them are anyway.
Yeah, and the themes will typically be that kind of open-ended. We don't want to have a yes-no. We want to say, how do we do this better?
Right.
And everything from police departments to governments to schools to corporations,
This
you
has
name
nothing
it.
to do with technology, software, nothing.
Not specifically, no. There have been hundreds of thousands of them in the last 20 years. Now, in the technology community, there's been a couple of morphs. One is Barcamps, which is a derivative of open space in that no agenda until people arrive. In Barcamps, it's more, I want to come and show and teach and tell.
Okay.
But there's also cases where people say, let's get together like we are here and talk about a topic, which is better, as we were saying earlier, MEF or what was it?
So it depends on your IOC, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Whatever
that's
that
term myself.
Right.
There was a fist fight that broke out. That I might
So-
be exaggerating about.
This is what I would call a hybrid, because when you run something like an open space in parallel to programmed sessions, it's not what I think of as open space uppercase,
Okay.
because there's no community coming together around something. Rather, it's here's an opportunity to get together and talk about what you're interested in, but the conversations don't relate to each other. And the community, the group that's here, is not here to do the open space, to get together in that way, so much as to attend the program sessions. And this is a nice opportunity to do something in addition.
Yes.
So
I don't know if it's universally true. I know I have talked to some people here who came just for the open spaces.
Yes, but it's not. So there's a subtlety here, which is when I say open space, we do an opening. And during the opening, I'll talk about the theme and I'll talk about why they're there. It's more than just to talk about stuff, there's a purpose.
Okay.
And even when it's like alt.net, the alt.net community has done a lot of open spaces. And while each open space is not about one particular technology or challenge, it's still about how do we as a community enhance the way we work in the .NET context by bringing in other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so all the conversations are about that, and they lead to follow-on.
Okay.
Right? And so if you heard me do my opening talk this morning, it was, this is an opportunity, and when you talk, don't let it end here if there's something that can grow out of it.
Right.
But in a true uppercase open space, there will be the opening and the closing is just a chance for everybody to say something, and that's the spiritual side of it.
Okay.
And there's not really that spirit here. This is,
So you didn't have an opening circle?
right.
Did you have a theme?
Not really, because
Not
it's
really,
just,
just
we're here
whatever.
for Code Mash.
Just get together, talk, if you have something to talk about, then
And-
go
and
ahead
I think
talk.
it's great.
We'll formalize that
Right.
a little bit more than just all the way.
Right. So when we did these with Microsoft, we called them community courtyards, right?
Okay.
Just to distinguish, because
That's
to
your
people who
lowercase
know
open
open
space.
space, yeah, people who know open space,
Mhm.
calling this open space is sand under the, or grit under
Oh,
the
those
saddle,
are the
you know.
sticklers.
Well, but I am to a certain extent.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to be here, and I see real value in what's happening here.
Huh?
It's just for me, calling it open space would be like people who talk about dynamic languages and static languages and calling one the other,
Right.
right? It's not, right?
These are definitions, these are
yeah.
communicated.
So I have an emotional attachment to that. Which I own.
Well, so I'll tell you the reason why. I'm sure you've heard people refer to this as open space. And
Right.
the reason is because I don't think here in the Midwest we have had a whole lot of what you describe as uppercase open space.
Right.
Just conferences
I may have
just
to
to
come up here
get
and do
together. We were welcome to, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as the official representative, as part of the country, I invite you.
The north, central, east, yeah.
Coming up, the closest I came, we had like somebody called it an Agile Summer Camp. And,
Yes.
I think there were several people involved. I know Chris Woodard was involved.
Yeah.
And it was outdoors in the woods and
Yeah.
real low tech. And, no presentations, just getting together.
Yeah.
Round tables.
And that's more
That's
the
closer to
idea.
what you're calling an open
Yeah.
space. So this is the community courtyard, and so because we don't have, we're not worried about. I say we, the Heartland community, we're not worried about the semantics so much. We just say, hey, this is a nice thing.
And it is.
We're giving it a name. We're calling
Yeah.
it open spaces, even though
Yeah.
technically that's not correct. Just like Americans call it football. Same idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
So
know that I would say it's not correct so much as for one who has an emotional attachment to the term open space, we had some disconnect initially between me and Jim. Because I thought when he said come facilitate open space,
Oh, okay. So
He
that
meant
does. You're
open
right.
space.
So if you settle on definitions and words,
Right.
then you can hit a lot
right,
better.
they have
So-
real meaning.
But you're from the South. We're from the North. That's that whole thing.
Well, I'm actually from New York.
You're from
originally,
New York,
but
all right.
I just live in the
All
South.
right. Actually, Alan Stevens was here
Yes.
facilitating this. I think last
Yeah.
time he was, and he's the guy that.
Yeah, we and I talked about it.
Yeah, he's the guy that, for me anyway, really kind of, he's been evangelizing this whole
Yeah.
open space community courtyard thing, and
Mhm.
he's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's sort of been spreading that throughout the community.
Yeah.
And so I must have heard him say open space. I'm not really sure.
Well, and
Maybe he didn't say that. That's what I heard him say. So.
yeah, no, and he is a fan of what I think of as uppercase open space.
Okay.
And I believe he has facilitated some as well. And he and I worked together on the first Microsoft, it was PDC 2008. And it was
Okay.
like this, where it was an open space in the
Okay,
midst
but
of
focused.
program sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there was some people, I don't resent it, but there were some who actually did resent it, that it was being called open space, because they thought, oh, cool, we're going to get to come together and do
Okay.
whatever.
All right, we worked that semantic thing into the
Yes.
ground. How's it going here? What do you, it's been, this is, I should point out, this is a 2-day conference.
Yes, and
and
we're
this is
close
the
to
end
the
of
end
the
of day
first
one.
day.
Yeah.
And I've walked through there a few times. I sat in one open space,
Uh-huh.
and I've walked through there a number of times. It's always busy. It's
Yeah.
always energetic. But when I was
Yeah.
in, there were probably a dozen people. And
Including the fist fight.
I made up the fist fight part, but there were arguments. There were very spirited
Yes.
arguments going on, and so the bit that I saw seemed
Yeah.
to be going well. What's your opinion?
I agree, and that's the part that really is open space, because it's self-organizing. There's no facilitator, there's no moderator, people get together, and even where they have heated conversations, it rarely gets out of hand. Because there's a sense of, we came together voluntarily to talk about something we all care about. Whether
Right.
it's Jeremy Miller's out there talking about Storyteller, his open source project, right? Or it's a bunch of people getting together to talk about IOC versus dependency injection versus MEF, whatever.
Right.
And there's that commitment. And so we talk about passion and responsibility and commitment. That's happening. And so any of those conversations, the people are there because that's more important to them or more interesting to them than any of the program sessions, and they want to participate, even if participation is passive.
Yep.
So it's okay to go and just listen because you're fascinated.
Yep.
One of the topics that's up there was about programming for the Android, and there were two guys talking about it. Neither one of them really knows it, but they want to talk about it. So they put up a session, hoping that somebody who knows about programming for the Android will come.
I've been in those sessions where sometimes somebody will get up and like run down the hall to find the Android guy.
Yes.
And drag him back and say,
Yep.
please come to our session.
Yep.
And
So I'm real happy with this because the conversations that are taking place clearly are creating value for people.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And that's what any part of this event should be about.
So what is your role?
I'm here to facilitate the open space. So basically it was to help set up the agenda, which I have nothing to do with other than saying, here's how you're going to do it. And being around to make sure they have the resources they need and support.
Resources like what?
Flip charts, whatever. So when I do real open spaces,
Okay.
what they pay me for is the beginning and the end, as much as
Okay.
anything, right?
All right, so
I help them beforehand.
So I guess here, so I'm so being flippant about that. I'm being very flippant about that.
Yeah.
But these conversations would happen anyway. A lot of them would. They'd be the coffee breaks. They'd be the hallway
Right.
conversations. What about?
But other
what
people
you're
would
doing?
miss them.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm saying. So what this conference is better because we have you here facilitating it.
I don't know that I would
What-
say it's better because I'm here in this particular case,
Well,
but
somebody's here.
right. I bring the experience and the organization of this kind of part of an event.
Why is this format better than just doing nothing? Because those things would happen organically anyway.
Right. Mostly because by putting them up on a wall and saying at 3:30 we're going to get together to talk about X, people who are interested in that know it's going to happen and can be there. Whereas, so we did one open space, for instance, the first one in Seattle, 2008.
Okay.
The alt.net open space. And at one point, Scott Hanselman, who many know from Microsoft.
He likes to talk.
Yes, and three other guys were standing in a hallway, and another guy walked up and heard what they were starting to talk about and turned on his little, recorder.
Camera or something?
Yeah, a flip or something, and recorded it, and that was unscheduled. And so on the one hand, it means that nobody else who was there knew it was happening.
Right.
But because this guy recorded it, everybody got to benefit from it, which is why I asked people here to create notes.
Ah.
Because some people say, you know what, I paid to come here, and there's a lot of good program sessions. I want to go to all of them, but I'd sure like to be able to learn from what these guys are talking about out there. Because you always have to make choices.
Oh, especially here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Well, I've been to conferences, there's one series that has, that in 2008 had 30 concurrent sessions.
Wow.
Yeah, you talk about making choices. Now, there were 1,500 people, but still, how do you choose between 30? And this past year, we had 20 to 25, about 20-ish concurrent sessions. Yeah, it's, how do you choose? And then you have open space as well.
Yeah, I think there's 7 here, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, at least 7, yeah.
Okay, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
There's too many. Too many
Yeah.
for me to see them all.
yeah. But that's not too bad.
Not too.
Yeah, yeah. But it's got to be something for everybody,
Agreed.
especially with 700 people.
So is this is primarily what you go to? Are you facilitating open spaces, or this is just a side project?
This is a side thing. I do this, so part of my job is to be out there in the public because I'm moderately well-known. I'm very confident out in the public. So I represent ThoughtWorks. So I work for ThoughtWorks and particularly ThoughtWorks Studios. My shirt.
ThoughtWorks, I've heard of that company. If somebody wanted to take on this role,
Yes.
kind of evangelize, organize, facilitate open
Right.
spaces or community courtyards in their area,
Uh-huh.
what would that take? Is it just enough to read the book, and follow a recipe, or is there more?
It's not tough to read the book. I would say that what made it different for me is first of all, I've been a professional motivational speaker. I've been speaking and presenting at conferences for over 20 years. I looked at this and said, there's more to this than just the mechanics. If you read the book, you can get the mechanics easily,
Right.
right? That's obvious. But what I do, I think that makes a difference is I talk about stirring the energy. So we have these conversations on the open space mailing list. and you know, what are our experiences? And for me, in the opening circle, the facilitator walks the circle. And you walk around and encourage people to kind of look around and see who else is there, and then talk about the theme and the purpose. And for me, that stirring of the energy is creating the start of the event.
Okay.
And if I'm not connecting with the people, it does make a difference. Now, I haven't had that experience that I don't connect at all.
But not everybody has that. That's not, I don't think
Right,
that's something you
and-
can learn, just to be able to connect with people.
I think you can learn it because there's a lot of, you can change how you feel by changing your behavior. And if you learn the behaviors and you understand what the behaviors are for,
Okay.
ultimately you'll get that stuff. So I think people can learn it, but they have to want to, or they have to be aware that there's something to learn. So the people who pick up the book and read the book and go, oh, I can do this, and they say, okay, here's how we're going to create the agenda, they miss that part. And I think that the reason people come to me is because they know that I get that part and that I create, I don't take sole responsibility. I start the creation of that community at an event.
Well, maybe it's, you have a passion for this.
Oh, I do.
And you're able to transmit that passion.
Yes.
So both those things have to happen. You have to start with that passion. You can't be just somebody that said, hey, you do this role.
Right.
You just get thrust into
Although
it.
ironically, that's kind of how I started. But I loved it. I
Turned
read
out
it.
you were the guy that
Right.
would
Yeah.
embrace that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that passion, if you just sort of thrust into it and you don't have the passion to begin with, it seems doomed to failure. And then in addition to the ability to transmit it, which I think what you're saying by
I
just
think
walking
so.
around.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what all, I mean, even in the book, it says walk the circle, right? Because he's very specific and he says, you know, have the host go out in the circle and introduce you and then come in from outside the circle and walk the circle. And don't say anything for the first time around. So that's all in the book. But for me, it was like, oh, there's an energy thing here. There's a spirit thing here. And strangely, because I'm in the techie community, this is the people I'm working with all the time. I've done 95% of my open spaces have been for the tech community. And it's very woo-woo what I do, right? It's and yet they love it. They get it.
Well, tech is a very passionate community. There's a lot of industries, a lot of things people do that people they're not passionate about. It's just a job.
Yeah.
But there are other things that people do that they just get into and they really have a passion for it. And I
Well,
think
when you get-
software development is one of those.
Yeah, but when people think of the tech community, they don't think of the kind of woo-woo spiritual.
You're right.
Let's all connect, right? And I walk the circle and I say, look at the people across the circle from you. They're here for the same reason you are. They're here to learn, to contribute, to share, the same as you are. And as I'm walking around, I'm saying this to everybody, little by little. And that's part of what I believe creates that context and that energy that contributes to a successful event. Because I give them ownership. I take their responsibility, their passion, and mine, and I offer it out and say, this is yours, make it. And they get off on that.
And then you step back and you look.
Yeah, I mean, after the opening and guiding them through creating the agenda, a facilitator's role is almost nil. I walk around, I pick up garbage, I pick up empty drink cups and coffee cups, and I make sure, so we talk about holding space and time. So my job is to make sure that if you have a room reserved, so just like here, right, it's 9:30, 10:45, and so forth, and space. My job is to make sure that when your time is up, you vacate the space because it's now somebody else's.
Right.
You don't have to stop your conversation. You can take it out in the hall, go somewhere else, but there's a respect that goes with that. So that's part of my job, is to make sure that the time and the space is respected. But other than that, no. I mean, Harrison talked about at one point facilitating an open space and going off and taking a nap because it's self-organizing.
Yeah, and that forces you to step away from it. 'Cause you're actually
Well,
out of the room.
and it doesn't, it's a discipline to a certain extent because it would be too easy for me to participate in some of these conversations.
So you don't? You
I
deliberately do
usually
not?
don't. Occasionally I do. There was one where a guy was talking about agile coaching and invited me to come. And I did, but after I made sure all the sessions had gotten started and I left to make sure all the other sessions finished when they should. Because that's me. I
Right.
take that responsibility as part of the role.
All right. Where can people find out more about Doc?
My blog is www.stevenlist.com/blog. Stephen with a V, STEVENLIST, like shopping list, .com/blog. And I write about facilitation and people and teams and communication and relationships. I think about this stuff a lot.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate what you're doing here at Code Bash, and I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks.
My pleasure. I don't think that technology and friends are at odds. And in fact, I think that, as exemplified by this conference, technology brings people together to be friends.